Welcome to NWR Virtual Resources Conference. It's May 2020. We have Dart Mining on the line today. Dart Mining is focused on gold exploration in northeast Victoria. Its primary focus is the BUCKLAND gold project, where Fairley's shear zone extends for more than 8 kilometres. The company believes that this zone consists of multiple individual mineralised shears, each several kilometres long. Dart Mining Managing Director James Chirnside is with us on the line. He has been involved in financial and commodity markets over a 30-year period. His career has ranged from working as a geologist assistant in the Pilbara to investment banking, and he has formed his own asset management company in 2002, becoming involved in capital raisings and investment across Asia Pacific. Over to you, James, with your presentation for Dart Mining.
Thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll just get the formalities out of the way. Forward-looking statements and cautions, which I'm sure you've seen plenty of today already. Our corporate directory, our metrics, stock code is DTM. We've got about 63.2 million shares on issue, about 7.7 million options, which are unlisted. Market cap at around 6 cents is about $4 million. Small board, very lean operation. Been in business as explorers since 2003. The company listed in 2007. The idea then was to identify and explore historic gold regions throughout the northeast and central Victoria. On our management team, we've got Dean Turnbull, who's a senior geologist and founder of the company. We've recently hired Steve Groves, who again is a senior geologist. He's heading up our exploration strategy now. Ben Hines, who is locked down in New Zealand at the moment, but we hope to have him back soon, is sort of head of our field operations. He does a lot of the field work with other members of the field team. The rest of the service providers, I think you can work those out. This is available, this presentation, on ASX. We released it about an hour ago. So our raison d'etre, our reason for being, is to rediscover or explore and increase our knowledge over northeastern Victorian and central Victorian historic goldfields. As most of you would be aware, Victoria has a disproportionate abundance of gold mineralisation, has in fact been responsible for about 3% of the world's total gold production. The heyday in Victoria ran from around 1850 through to the 1920s. There has been significant exploration since then, through the 70s and 80s. The gold price kind of bottomed in the 90s and early 00s. We saw it reach a historic high post GFC. We're again now at historic highs. Obviously, with the help of the Australian dollar, we're seeing tremendous margin in gold production for those companies that are producing. But the base for our justification, if you like, is that the early explorers and miners, in fact, were unable to fully exploit a lot of the gold mines and fields that they worked. There's been a resurgence in gold production, and Kirkland Lake's Fosterville mine is the best mine in the world in terms of recovered gold per tonne of material. We've seen a resurrection of the Stawell gold mine, and there are only 2 headline stories in Victoria, which is driving an enormous amount of international interest into the space. Victoria remains, or on a global scale, remains largely unexplored. $8 gold price, as I mentioned, very, very strong. The impact of that on miners and producers particularly is fantastic, and particularly in a post or in a COVID-19 environment, where companies are able to produce, you've got fantastic margins being achieved. We think that, has been the case historically, a lot of the money and interest will flow down from major producers through to second tier and ultimately down into the exploration sector. Junior explorers have been unloved for a long time by the market. We think that that will change. A lot of exploration money was shelved, or activity was shelved after the GFC. For the next 7 or 8 years, there was very little budget for companies to explore with. That's changed. Suddenly there's a realisation, not only in gold, but other base metals, that the exploration pipelines are quite narrow. There are some significant mines that are coming towards end of life, and we think that that will spur a lot more exploration activity and a lot more cooperation between the majors and the juniors. Just recapping, we hold around 4,000 square kilometres of exploration ground in the northeast of Victoria, and I'll get to some maps on that shortly. We are looking not only for lode-style gold, but we've also historically discovered porphyries. Probably the most significant of those is Mount Unicorn, which is a 200 million tonne inferred resource on molybdenum copper. We discovered the first hard rock lithium on the east coast of Australia back in 2016. Most of that occurs in the Mitta Valley. I'll point to that as we go through the presentation. The other thing that's interesting about the ground that we hold, and particularly through our lithium exploration activities, we did come across significant traces of rare earth elements, and we're doing more work on that at the moment as well. The main focus for us is our BUCKLAND Gold project, and I'll get to that in a moment. In terms of regional geological setting, the 4 stars that you can see there on that map, entitled Geological Fairways, that was produced by GeoVic back in June 2015. The significance of it is that the areas identified in the table at the top of that map indicate the types of and style of mineralisation and minerals. So on the left-hand side, the star on the left-hand side, around about in the middle of the map, you'll see a number 5. You'll see that repeated to the right. The number 5 on the left is representative of the central northern Bendigo, Ballarat type mineralisation. And what we've worked out is that, and this is not our own interpretation, but GeoVic's, that style of mineralisation actually folds around and repeats, if you like, and runs parallel over to the east, to the second star, if you like, on the map from the left. And that coincides with a corridor of significant historic production of 7 million ounces. And further to the right, the third star, further to the east on the map, if you like, Area 7, which is highly prospective for tin tantalum. BHP did a lot of work there during the mid-80s. We did a lot of work there between 2016, 2018. We've identified in the order of 2,500 to 3,000 LCT pegmatites, and there's still a lot of work that we need to do there. Further to the right, you'll see porphyry targets, and that star sits right on top of our Mount Unicorn project, which is the 200 million tonne inferred resource Mount Unicorn moly copper deposit. So we're well positioned. We've got a fairly broad portfolio, large in terms of land, but very select in terms of the land that's been pegged. And we'll move on. Into the projects or the exposures within our portfolio, we divide it into 3 parts, really. Gold or lode-style gold, represented by 9 historic goldfields: BUCKLAND, Dart, Mountain View, Rushworth, Sandy Creek, Granite Flat, sometimes referred to as Empress, which is in the Mitta Valley, Onslow Reef, Stulu, Saltpeter Gap and Mount Elmo. In terms of porphyries, we've identified 7 different porphyries systems, and we've spent a lot of time and money on Mount Unicorn, which I mentioned earlier. Probably the next most interesting of those, and when I say we've identified porphyry style mineralisation outcropping at surface. That's the porphyries. We'll come back to them later in the presentation, and the lithium prospects between 2,500 and 3,000 lithium, cesium, tantalum dikes in the Eskdale and Glen Wills areas. Onto the Buckland Gold Project, just in terms of its location, it's just south of the township of Bright. On the map that you can see there in front of you, we've got a big circle there. That encompasses the Rutherglen, Chiltern, Beechworth, Bright, Harrietville Goldfields, from which over time, historically, there's been about 7 million ounces mined. So it is significant. It's not the 30 million type ounce production numbers from Bendigo, Ballarat, but very significant nevertheless. In the days when these prospects were mined, it was considered a very remote area. It was difficult to access. You had big issues with water, and a lot of the mining really took place either at surface or just below surface. It was also, the old timers were really chasing the super high grade gold, and anything that was less than an ounce a tonne was really of no interest to them. They couldn't make a lot of money out of it. So the significance of the Buckland project, just in summary, is that we've identified 17.5 kilometre strike of stacked shear zones, 2 styles of mineralisation, one super high grade and one a sort of disseminated halo effect. The width of the stacked shears is over around 400 metres, that's about maximum width, along 17.5 kilometres, and that 17.5 kilometres remains open, particularly to the south, where we're continuing to do surface work, geochem and rock chip sampling. We have got a proposed, in fact, we've got a work plan that's been lodged to do some drilling there, beginning as soon as possible. We're ready to go. We are waiting for a couple of things to happen with respect to COVID-19 restrictions, but we anticipate that over the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to move the rig in and begin drilling on the Fairleys prospect, which lies right at the heart of the Buckland Gold Project. We did do some drilling back in 2014. It was quite a limited program on the Fairleys prospect that lies within the Buckland Gold Project. And again, back in 2007. So we're lucky that we have knowledge that the mineralisation is going to depth, 180 or 200 metre type depths so far, and below surface, and quite thick mineralised intersects down at those depths. The Buckland Valley, which is where the project is, was probably historically better known for alluvial style gold extraction. A lot of the river systems around there were dredged in the early days. I'm talking late 1800s, early 1900s. There was a lot of gold was taken out. There was a lot of gold that was taken out that was not reported as well. So production numbers from this particular area don't appear historically to be terribly large, but given that there was almost no reporting of production, we suspect that there was a great deal more taken out. Internally, we suspect that the Buckland Gold Project, and particularly the Fairleys project within that, and surrounding mineralisation, is actually the source of a lot of the alluvial gold that was taken out of the Buckland River, which lies on that map just to the east of the Kaufman prospect, which you can see. And yeah, so we think that it was, we think it is a source of all the alluvial that was taken out. So we've spoken about location, we've spoken about scale, and we've mentioned style. There is indeed similarities between Bendigo style gold mineralisation and the mineralisation we're getting over here, over east of the Bendigo, east of Bendigo, I should say. So we'll move on to the next one. These are just a couple of photographs of visible gold taken out of the Fairleys mine. That's the top left. The sheared sediment, which contains much of the halo or the type B type mineralisation, is the photograph just down below that on the left. The Queen Jubilee prospect, the photograph up on the top right there, shows some trenching that we did across some rock there, taking out 2.66. But I've got a better summary of the sort of results we've taken down below. The bottom right, you can see, I don't know whether you can actually, but there's 3 bits of visible gold that you can see in that rock there. And that was sampling at about 83 grams a tonne. So just to be clear, we've got the super high grade style of mineralisation, which is represented mainly through the old mines. And we've got this halo effect, or this disseminated gold, spread across 17.5 kilometres and up to around 400 metres in width on stacked shear zones. This gives you a bit of a summary of rock chips and grab samples taken, and these are random, they're not selective, but you can see that we've done a fair bit of work here. In fact, there's been over 6,000 surface samples taken here. It's pretty steep country, very steep actually, and it's difficult country, but actually the difficult country lends its way positively in a lot of respects, particularly for drilling and indeed mining, where you can put adits in from the side of the hill. So shear hosted gold, you can see on the right there we've got some drill intersections that were taken in 2008 and 2014, and they're very encouraging. As I said, we're starting a new program, drill program, just as soon as we can get up there, literally. Everything is set to go. We anticipate, I honestly think that it'll be towards the end of this month, towards the end of May, before we actually get in there. But it does, we're very excited for that. We've got all the drill hole designs ready, and so we're just waiting. I think I've kind of covered a fair bit that's on these drilling highlights, but again, you might be feel more comfortable coming back to that in the presentation and looking at it a bit later on. Second, probably in terms of our internal priorities at the moment, and we are spoiled for choice, but probably second ranked is our Rushworth Gold project. Certainly in terms of neurology, it looks very good, but we've started to do work there. We know that there's been gold taken out of there over time, in fact, very high grade. We've got a neighbour in Newmont and Chalice, and also Ngambia have pegged right around us. It is very similar in style to Fosterville, Bendigo, and we've got 100% of that project. We need to do some drilling. We anticipate doing some drilling there within the next 3 months. We've got a work plan that's been prepared, not yet lodged, will be lodged fairly soon. We've got drill holes designed, and we're good to go. We've got a very solid strategy for working that up. We did start at Rushworth with 3 fairly small lease areas. We've expanded, or we did expand that out significantly about 2 years ago. luckily. Dart is possibly known by some of you for its porphyry exploration and particularly Mount Unicorn, but we have no shortage of very interesting targets up in the northeast. Amongst those, and I guess this list actually is a list of priority projects. We have Stacey's, their gold copper, with the exception of Mount Unicorn, which is a molybdenum dominant porphyry system. But Empress, where Perseverance and others drilled back in the 80s, we've got all the data in there. We've got it in 3D. It needs some more interpretive work. But Stacey's and Gentilani are the standouts at the moment, and that's where we want to start drilling fairly soon. We haven't actually got it scheduled, but I hope within the next 6 months or so, we'll begin to start doing some work on those. And just wrapping up, because I think I'm getting a wind up, that is a tenement status table there that you can see with square kilometres, except for the RLs at the bottom 3, which are represented in hectares. Back to you, NWR. Do you want me to field
Thanks,
questions?
James. Thanks for that presentation. It was really comprehensive. Patrick wants to know, on your BUCKLAND project, drilling there, how many metres deep will you be drilling?
The whole designs go to about 70 or 80 metres from surface. It's a first phase program. The idea of it is to try and determine the width of mineralisation that we're seeing at surface up near the Fairleys mine itself. And it will be first phase. We anticipate doing that. It'll probably take 2 to 3 weeks. It's probably 1,000 metre total program, maybe 1,200 metres. We're going from there up to another property we've got just to the north near Wodonga called Sandy Creek. We want to put some holes in there to test a concept that we have. And then we'll be moving over to Rushworth, and then from Rushworth up to Mountain View near Corryong to begin work on an ML that we hold at Mountain View that is quite substantial.
Mm-hmm. And I've noted that you recently made an appointment to Stephen Groves as your head of exploration, and you know that's obviously pretty big news for you considering where he's come from. What do you expect where do you expect the company will be in the next 12 months in light of that? How do you think things will progress? Maybe specifically with the BUCKLAND project.
Well, look, Steve's appointment is very welcome. He's a great guy. He's very experienced. He's had experience with all the majors. He's had experience particularly in gold. He has knowledge of lithium. He's done a lot of work in Africa. He's a local Melbourne guy, although living in Sydney, but that's an easy commute down to Albury for us. Steve brings a tremendous wealth of experience and knowledge, and it's always good. Dart's been around for a long time, and it's great to have a fresh set of eyes on all of our data, not just BUCKLAND. But BUCKLAND is our big focus right now, where we're really keen to get some results out from drilling on the first phase program, which, as I mentioned, we're hoping to start by the end of this month.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, James. We look forward to seeing that, and thanks for joining us on the call today.
Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for sticking around. We've got a couple more presentations left for the day. This is day 1 of the NWR Virtual Resources Conference. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.